This is Coach Gaytan Lawrence, somebody that I look up to very, very, very much. Somebody that believed in me when I didn't believe in myself. Gonna get me emotional talking about it. When gave me a shot at a world championship, when I didn't feel I deserved to be alive. So a great man of God. He's led me spiritually. Yeah, and I mean, just been a mentor above and beyond when I had nobody at times. So, yeah, thank you, brother, for everything.
Ooh, it's hard to hear.
Yeah,
It's hard to hear. I mean, it's hard for me to hear because I've heard everything else about me, but very few compliments unless it was forced by me, you know. Because obviously I never had much good going on for me, but it started when I was 5. When I was 5 years old, I had my first drink. I was walking at a wedding, and the pitchers were sloshing, so I'd stop and take a drink, set it down, go through the night. Next thing you know, I'm passed out on these chairs. Fight breaks out. I go, and I'm like, wow. It didn't dawn on me until when I was 14. Then we'll go forward from 5 until when I started school. And I remember walking down the street and looking at this kid, and I kept going, God, I can hit him. I can just go beat him up for no reason, just all this violence. And I'm like, I don't like that kid. What's up? So a little bit farther forward, then I get in my 3rd grade year, and then this kid and his older sister, my older sister, were battling. So next thing you know, he decided to take it out on me. So a whole year was nothing but fighting every day, running home, getting beat up by kids, and it was just like I was just me, just trying to get through this, and had to suffer for my sister. So got taken out of public school, put in private school. First day of school, what happens? Teacher leaves, bam, break out in a fight. I beat up the bully. Teacher comes in, tells me, "You okay?" I said, "Yeah." She tells him, "You." Go the opposite. So I'm learning that violence is okay, not even knowing it. Then the next year, same bully, same fight. Then the next year, same bully, same fight. 6th grade, I got taught it was okay to hit a girl. The reason why I said it is that we had a girl that was bullying me. She went to slap me, cut my eye, boom, I hit her. And started crying. The next thing you know, I'm like, oh, I'm in trouble. And the teacher tells me, go sit down. Sends her to the office. He goes, I'm surprised you didn't do that earlier. And I'm like, what? What I learned, it's okay to hit a girl. So I sat there and I keep going through my life, and I keep going through all this negativity. I'm always feeling like this little kid, because I remember one time when my aunt sat there, put me outside in a raging hailstorm, 5 years old, in the rain, lightning, thunder, screaming, crying. I couldn't do nothing. And all I remember is just that. So for me in my life, that moment is so significant that whenever I get into my fear mode, that little boy is right there. So it's good for me because now I have something to identify what's happening in my life. So we keep going through school. I start sports, and my coach is real abusive. We're the best. You know, I started in private school, best education. Our school, our teams were the best, always the best, the best, the best. Ego starts to build as a kid, and get into to my 9th grade year of high school, and I'm at Regis, and I make the basketball team. I've been training for 4 years to make this because it was the thing to be on the basketball team at Regis. I made the team. I'm like, yes. Varsity coach comes up to me and goes, hey, how tall are you? How tall is your mom? And I go, she's 4'11". He goes, how tall is your dad? And I go, 5'3". And he goes, oh, I heard you're a good swimmer. Maybe you have a future in swimming. Coming from the basketball team right there. Destroyed. So I thought, went to state in swimming. So, and his basketball team didn't do anything. So that was kind of my little reprieve. But it just kept going like that. And I always kept feeling lost, always feeling like I didn't fit in. 9th grade year, that's when alcohol took over. It's in the aspect of I drank the same way the first day as I did the last day, which is blackout drinker. I never known moderation. It was either all or nothing. You know, and violence, I'm a violent drunk. I mean, I've got a huge record. I mean, it's nothing to be proud of, but I'm not ashamed of it because it's only a reflection of who I used to be. You know, they sit there and they say that the lotus flower starts in the mud and the dirtiest stuff and becomes one of the most prettiest flowers in the pond. And that's what I tried to get my life to become, is that I had mud. I was that mud, and I created that mud. I beat that mud. You know, we talk about in the program that you go through a daily reprieve. You get to wake up every day clean. And I have to remember that because Because every day I wake up, a lot of times as that little boy. I couldn't understand why all these years I felt lost. I felt lost. Why I didn't fit in. And then I sat there and I was like, well, what's going on? So football teams, that started to make me feel good. And then being in teams, then I got into individual sport, which was bodybuilding, and that took me up to a whole different aspect of egotism, you know. You're narcissistic, and if you're not, then get out of the sport because, and what groomed me for that are my initials are LRG, large. So what am I gonna be? I'm gonna be large. First thing I wanted to be large was to be able to wear a shirt that was a large, you know, and so I was happy so I could do that. And my life just kept progressing on, you know, and then, you know, with bodybuilding comes steroids, and then with that comes attitude, comes alcohol tolerance to the ceiling. So, you know, I got charges, destroying a bunch of stuff, and the whole thing through this is, I always had God there, and I always knew that because I could always feel it. It was always my dad over my shoulder, no matter where I was at. And it's just something to go through all the stuff I went through. I mean, walking, I remember 5th grade, first time I had to deal with any real violence is I'm walking home and I look over and I see all these cops in front of this pharmacy by my school, and all of a sudden I see this guy running out and pa, 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 and yeah, dude's getting shot with the shotgun and sprays. And I'm like, stop. I'm like, wow, and it's like from here to that wall. I'm like, did I just see what I saw? So I turned and walked back into school. They go, where are you? And I says, oh, I was in the bathroom. Well, get in here, there's a robbery going on. So, okay. Years later, kind of find out that man was one of my best friend's dad. And that was something to give him relief out of that tragedy because he asked me, what happened? And I told him, and he goes, finally, I go, what? He goes, finally I heard the truth. And I go, what do you mean? He goes, that was my dad. I was like, wow. And he's been my friend for 53 years. And that's, you know, we just, we talk a lot on the time as time goes on, but I mean, going to Catholic school, I had indoctrinated into the Catholic school aspect of religion every day, church every day. You know, you only had, you know, altar boy, all that stuff. And I mean, it was something I really adhered to because I felt such a freedom when I was with God. You know, I felt safe. And then as time kept going on, you know, I had, you know, we talked about the demonic aspects of God making his Satan making his self present happened to me. And I learned don't ever ask Satan to reveal himself because he will. Mm-hmm. And he's a lot bigger than you think he is. And I learned you don't do that. You know, you stick with what's right, and that's, you know, for me that's, you know, God. And going through this whole thing, what finally came down to get me to make the full commitment is 1996. I was listening to that song by Michael Jackson, "Man in the Mirror." And then I sat there and realized I want to make a change. And it was like, you know, it was talking about how you have to do all this. So I started my change. Got sober, and then I had 6 years of sobriety, and then I relapsed, and I got my 8th DUI down in Texas. Got sent back on probation. Got in trouble here in Colorado for a drinking offense, and then they, boom, revoked it, and I'm doing prison time in Texas. And the journey in Texas was you had to go through Huntsville. And Huntsville puts away on the average of 67 people a year to death. So I'm in Huntsville, I'm terrified. I don't realize this fear. I never realized how terrified I was going from Huntsville to Marshall, and then finally to my unit. And every time I'm watching Tango Blast, I'm watching Aryan Brotherhood, I'm watching Sereños, and I'm watching Norteños, I'm watching Eme, I'm watching everything around me. And I'm not sitting there going, I'm from Colorado, I don't speak Spanish, I don't have a Spanish accent. And all these people are looking at me, coming up to me speaking Spanish, and I don't speak Spanish, and they go, oh, what are you then? And it was everybody. So it was by myself. But it didn't matter to me because, you know, I just didn't understand what was happening. And then I finally got to where they had where my county stay was, and they said, do you read the Bible? I said, no. I said, well, hey, go do this. You know, it's free. And when you're doing time, you know, if it's free, you're going to take it. So they gave me a Bible and the book, The Purpose-Driven Life. And then I found a Bible study, the Book of Job. And it's emotional for me because I lived the Book of Job. Mm-hmm. And Job, I'm finally at the end of it. And that's taken 15 years straight, but it didn't count for the 6 years before that when I tried to stay sober and I couldn't. And So now I started reading that book. I start going through it, and I read it, and I was diligent, did it every day, read the book of Job, and then I realized, whoa, Job didn't get his all back. He got a new wife, new kids, new riches, and I said, okay, I understand this now. Okay, this makes sense, okay. But one thing I've never sat there and done is expected the book of Job to play out in my life. You know, they say if you're prayerful and you're diligent and you obey God, then you can expect for him to keep his end of the deal. So that's what I do. I know that my responsibility is that as long as my side of the street is clean, God's with me all the way. So that's why I try to live. And so I get that purpose-driven life, did that, and I'm get shipped off into my unit, and I'm sitting there, and a young man sat there, and he goes, his dad was a preacher, and he hated God because his mom died, and he couldn't save her by prayer. So he goes, they're getting ready to do baptism, and he goes, Gaytan. I go, yeah. And he goes, I think I'm going to do it. I go, what? He goes, I'm going to get baptized. I said, okay. He goes, will you be there for me? I said, sure. I go, I'll be there. So I'm thinking I'm going to go to do a support of this guy. So I go, they make the call to go, and all of a sudden I walk up to the gate guard, looks at me, he goes, get baptized? Only those who get baptized can go. And I went, okay, yeah, I'm getting baptized today. So not knowing what was happening, and this is how God is working for me, is all of a sudden I go, and John Goodman is who this preacher looked like. Big old dude, happy, big old smile, and I mean, oh my God, I mean, just he's a great guy. Takes us into this trough, and it's warm water. Get down to your boxers, and he sits there and he goes, I step in, I'm not thinking much, I'm just kind of, okay, whoa, this water's warm, okay. And all of a sudden he goes, you ready? And I'll never forget that, just like John Goodman, you ready? And I'm like, yeah. And all of a sudden I hear, you're baptized in the name of the Father, and I come up out of the water, and I look around, and he goes, you okay? You go, yeah, hold on a minute. And this is emotional for me, because when you hear what it says, I sat there and I go, wow. And what it was is it was a huge, giant erase board, a whiteboard that I could write on. But God gave me a Sharpie. Because the agreement I was about to make was no way I'm taking it away. So I knew that I had the confidence to write on a dry erase board with a Sharpie. So from that day forward, that's what I always try to do. I always try to remember that somebody's watching, which is God. Somebody cares, which is God, and I'm never alone. And now that I have that, I don't have that worry or that strife of that fear of being alone, which allows me to go through my life and not be confident, but be smart in how I do things. Because confidence still kind of kicks me in the butt sometimes. Because my confidence before was going ahead and grabbing you by your shirt and taking your wallet and saying, yeah, thank you, boom, and sitting you down and saying, there we go. And I don't like being like that anymore. It's just not right. And so the whole prison system going through that really helped me out, because it was all about God for me that whole time. One time in the unit, I'm walking across the yard, and this young kid was looking at me, and I looked at him, and he starts coming up like he's going to fight me. And all of a sudden, this dude grabs me and goes, excuse me, he goes, that's preacher man, you don't mess with him. I'm like, I've never met the guy, never seen the guy, didn't know they were even in the same prison as me. And this man said that, and I went, wow. That let me know the responsibility I have as a person who's filled with the Spirit of God, that's the, somebody's always watching. Somebody's always seeing what you're doing, because, I don't know, man. I just think about that, and I think about some of the stuff that's taken me, just jumped me right out of there to go ahead and talk about where I'm at now. It's like, I sat there, and my whole life, like I said, I've always felt lost, like I never fit in. And my dad's 90. I asked him, I go, hey Dad, what's the most you ever weighed? And he goes, 115 pounds. And I'm looking at that, and I go, the last time I weighed 115? He goes, probably never. I said, no, it's probably like 6th grade. No, I mean 9th grade. He goes, okay. I go, what do you weigh now? And he goes, I weigh 85 pounds. I'm like, wow. And I was taking him to the gym to try to get him agile, just movement. And he sits there and he goes, man, I go, what? He goes, I look at you and I see me. And he goes, I know I can do this. So I'm going, yeah, come on, let's go ahead, let's do this. Let me try and let me help you. So this man's sitting there really using that to help himself. But unbeknownst to him and I go and I do that ancestor, the 23andMe DNA test, and kind of find out he's not my biological dad. So, I'm sitting there looking at this man, it's not my dad, that's looking at me, seeing hope. Because he feels that this is a representation of who he is. I'm sitting there, when I found that out, I called my mom and says, "Hey Mom, do you know who Hector Huertas is?" And she goes, "No, I gotta go." Boom. I said, "Okay." So I get a call back later, she goes, "I couldn't talk." I go, "Yeah." I go, "You know who Hector Huertas is, huh?" She goes, "Yeah." I go, "It's my dad, huh?" She goes, "Yeah." I was so mad. I went off for about a half an hour. Never called my mom a whore. I don't have a right to do that. Because it's just not right. And so I went through all that, and then I left with my fiance, and we went and we talked, and I was mad and everything. I said, "You know what? If I am half the man that I claim to be and I tried to live as, I have to forgive that woman." Because the only thing that kept going through my mind is the woman at the well, the Samaritan. And the love that was shown to her by Christ. And I was like, that's all I can do. So though I found a huge identity that I didn't know about, at the same time I had to let go of a big part of me, because everything that I've been raised as being of Mexican descent, everything that I have, my tattoos of Mayan descent, I have not one, I have maybe like a 50th of Mexican blood in me, but I'm basically Puerto Rican, And I'm like looking at this going, if there's two different things, it's like, and what gets me is, here's my dad, my dad that I was born with, his name is Jesus Benito Gaytan. Okay, that's a strong Mexican name. My real dad's name is Hector Huertas, and that's a huge, and I look at those and I find that God did that for a reason. And my fiance really helped me, because she goes, sure, you found this out about your dad, because I found out that my dad, he did 2 tours of Vietnam. He's a Purple Heart veteran. He was a military man, did 20 years in the military. Then he became a school teacher, graduate of Baylor. And what really stinks is that he just died last year. So I didn't get to meet him. And my fiance sat there, she goes, "You gotta," I go, "Man, I wish I could have met him," and I'm crying. She goes, "Let me tell you something." She goes, "Do you remember what kind of person you used to be?" I had to stop. She goes, "Because I'm telling you, genetics do play a part." She goes, "Maybe you weren't supposed to meet him, but you're only supposed to dream what you thought he's supposed to be." I went, huh. Because when I look at my siblings, on his side, he has 4 sons and 2 daughters. You can, and I mean no disrespect or derogatory statement about him, but you can tell that every one of them is not athletic. And you look at my dad, I look exactly like my dad, and my dad's kind of a buff dude, and my dad was an avid golfer, I'm an avid golfer, and so it made me realize some genetics play in there. And I realized that it took me going to prison, 8 DUIs, $310,000 in court costs, fees, and all that to become who I am.
Dude, I thought I had a hard head.
And this man might not have ever changed, and I might have met the meanest person I could have ever met by meeting myself with this guy, And it's like, so now I sit there, and with my dad that I grew up with, he sat there the other night and we were talking. He goes, "Man, I go, "What, Dad?" He goes, "I just never did anything for you." I go, "Well, what do you mean?" He goes, "I don't know." He goes, "I just wish I'd been there more." And I said, "Let me tell you something." I said, "You are responsible for who I am today." I go, "When you went and took out a $25,000 cash bond for me not to be in jail, all you had to do was wait 8 hours, and it was $750. But you couldn't last 8 hours watching me be in jail, and you put up 25 grand. I says, that moment right there is what made me who I am today." And he goes, "I don't get it. Why?" And I said, "Because I was hoping you'd wait $750, and I was leaving to California and not coming back." I said, "Your move forced me to face my life and grow up today." And and the hardest part about that is he started crying. And this is a man I've never seen cry. And he started crying, and I said, whoa, and I held him. And, we talked, and, I just told him, no, you did these things. And you could tell he felt so good about himself. And I walked out of the room, my mom followed me. She goes, thank you, I really need that. And I said, no, not really. I said, that should just let you know what kind of man I am. I said, and I'm self-made because you didn't help me. And I really have a lot of bitterness towards my mom. But I sat there and I had to find a way in which I could take all that pissed off energy towards my mom and put it towards the good. I have a sister that's really stuck in her addiction. I say, Mom, would you say, because she put away, I shouldn't say put away, but put to rest all of her brothers and sisters except for one. And she's the oldest. So she put away and put them all to the other world. But I mean, I told her, I said, why don't you save your daughter's life? I said, you never stepped in. I said, now you can. And she goes, ah. I said, well, I can always go down to the coffee shop and tell them that this isn't my dad. She goes, all right, I'll go down there. So I had to find some way to leverage it. And I please, I look at God. God's like, dude, you're tripping. But he's appreciating it because my mom talked to my sister, who's really, really stuck in her addiction now. My sister, I thought was going to blow up on my mom because she's a violent person. She didn't blow up. She was upset. I walked in and go, you okay? She said, yeah. And she left, and my mom come back a couple of days later, and she goes, you know what? And I go, what? She goes, your sister called me and told me thank you. I said, okay. I said, now I'm going to help you. So now I'm helping my mom save my sister's life because some people say that marijuana is not addictive and can't destroy your life. Oh, yeah. If you ever wonder, go to an MA meeting. Wow, it's amazing. That was my first meeting out of prison, was an MA meeting, and marijuana can really destroy a person it's something to hear the stories and you don't think there'd be a nightmare from something that makes you go, wow, man. But you hear the nightmares and you hear the tormentation they have, and it's sometimes almost worse than being an alcoholic. And it's just, I know that God has forgiven me, and I live by that. I know that I'm here to share, and I know that I'm in service work to my fellow man and everything that I can do. I mean, I'll give you the shirt off my back, and I don't care if you use it or not, or give it away. I mean, if you say that you need it at that moment, I don't care. And if you use it, cool. If you don't and you just wanted it, that's okay with me too, because as far as I know, is God will take care of me no matter what. Amen. No matter what.
Amen.
So that's a little bit, because the story changes each time I say it. Oh, I got 15 years of sobriety.
Amen.
And the cool thing about that part is my sobriety date is 08/08/08.
That's pretty cool.
And if you throw an 8 on its side, it's infinity. And I really don't want to change that because that's cool.
Well, 8 is the number of new beginnings.
And also, too, it's the number 3.5.
Okay.
Because
so now we're gonna get fancy. Well, it's
well,
also a pretzel.
Well, yeah. well, the reason why I have the 3 tattooed on here is because that's the most important step for me in AA. Made a decision through my will, my life, Lord, to carry to God as I know Him.
It's the Trinity.
And the Trinity. Everything comes in 3s.
Yeah.
3 wise men.
Yeah.
Rose on the 3rd day.
Absolutely.
The rooster crowed 3 times.
Correct.
Everything's
How long
in
was
3.
what's his name in the belly?
The ball of the whale, Jonah.
Jonah in the belly, 3 days, right? How long was Paul blind for?
3 days. That's the most prominent number in the Bible. And it follows in my life and everything. Though we're not supposed to tattoo our bodies.
I mean, that's Leviticus, bro. I don't know. Hey, Grace showed up and died on a cross, dude.
Ain't that true? It's a good deal, man. You guys keep doing what you're doing.
Ooh, got to 1%. Look at that.
You guys some good stuff here, brother.
I love you, brother.
Love you too, man. You're a good dude. Doing your thing.
Do you want to
Don't worry
finish
about
something
that.
out for your podcast?
No, because I'm
No,
just
we're
going to cut
good.
these up into clips, yeah.
Okay.
Thank you, everybody, for coming.
Absolutely.
Love you guys.
Thank you for listening.
Where did I get you? Where you've always been enjoying going to the fights or what?
I've never been to any of the fights. I've never.
Yes.
But I know, like,